recently, it was a very short announcement to the team. I said, listen, the money is there, it's great, let's go back to building the business. Let's go back focusing on clients and growing. And this served us really well, this mindset, because we did, it was an evolution, we did chase the raises before.
Sure.
Once we really nailed on that and started really growing fast, commercializing the hell out of our technology, fundraising became much easier, because the mindset when talking to investors was like, look, this train is leaving the station no matter what. Like this business is already growing, and look how much it's grown.
Amazing. Tom, thank you for joining me on the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Amazing. So you've built Oculo from just an idea into a fast-growing AI construction tech company. A lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this podcast, they're at the very, very early stages. They might have an idea, they want to build a business. You've gone on that journey and turned nothing into something amazing. What advice, what tips, what recommendations would you give to people that are just starting their founder journey?
For sure. I mean, look, I've made a ton of mistakes in my entrepreneur journey. A lot of them are almost like cliche mistakes, but it seems like everybody needs to make them to like really live them. Yeah. So a few things that come to mind is, first one is growth is everything and revenue is everything. There's a lot of people who are enamored with building product. Honestly, like when you're starting a company, you're either really strong in product or you're really strong in commercial, and you need both of those things. Yes. So I've seen too many people who like love to iterate on their product, and if it doesn't sell, then the best thing to do is go back and iterate on the product. I'm like, how about you sell more? Yes. And I've seen too many people literally give up because it's like that's the scary, difficult part. Yeah. So revenue and growth is like just so many people just don't appreciate. It's pretty obvious, but that's all what this is about.
It's common sense, but it's not common practice, is it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Like great CTOs, great engineers, they're amazing at building stuff. They're terrible at selling stuff. And then great sales and marketing people, they can sell ice to Eskimos, but Eskimos don't need ice. They need a different product, and you need the harmony of the two to build something amazing. Exactly, and which brings me to my second point. It's a team sport. It's not a solo sport. So it's really important. It's like somebody said, it's like the Beatles. It's a combination of different skill sets that are complementary. It's 1 + 1 = 11 kind of thing. So if you're strong in product, make sure you have somebody really strong in commercial, and vice versa. And with every new person you add, like hiring, you have to get really good at hiring really quickly. Because ultimately that's like the company is the people that you bring to the table. So don't compromise on this in the interest of speed early on. And then the last thing is, again, it's a cliche, but I've seen people fail on this so many times, is just refuse to die. Yes. Actually have tenacity. Be a cockroach.
Be a cockroach and just survive. Somebody told me, if you survive 5 years, you'll be a real business. And there's just too many people where it's like, it's too hard. It's, you run into some sort of issues, be it sales, be it some sort of setback. And, it's tough.
Yeah, I agree with all of those points. Don't die, just do whatever it takes to stay alive, because the last men and women standing are the ones that win most of the time. Find a great co-founder, find somebody that complements the skills that you're lacking, whether that's sales, whether that's product, whether that's whatever. And if you get those few things right, then it's off to the races afterwards, basically.
Yeah, and one last thing to say, which is a little bit maybe more counterintuitive, is do take holidays, take care of your mental health, but also optimize for serendipity. There's like my story generally is a story of serendipity, and it's like you can optimize for that. I've had when I started my current business, I didn't take any holidays for the first 2 years. The first time I did it, I had 3 encounters that literally changed the trajectory of my business. Like the first one was literally as I sat on the plane on my way there. So it's not to be underappreciated, the value of serendipity.
It sounds almost like a cheesy metaphor, analogy, whatever the word is, but if you're spending all your time with an axe trying to chop down the tree and build the startup, eventually that axe is going to get really, really, really blunt. But if you just take a few days, a week, whatever it is, to sharpen the axe and go away and recharge and get better, when you come back and try and chop down the tree, it's just going to be so much sharper and easier and quicker and more effective. So holidays are not just about taking a break, it's about setting yourself up to be better when you're actually working as well.
Actually, it's interesting that you mentioned the axe. There's this analogy I've heard recently, which I find really interesting and helpful for the further stages of the startup career. Is there's three stages you can be when building your company.
Okay.
Phase one is the warrior.
Yes.
It's the person that goes with a machete on their own through the jungle and chops left, right, and center and just tries to find a way.
War mode. Yeah.
Second phase is the architect, which is when you're starting to scale it, add people who are better than you and are starting to delegate more and more. It's important to realize when that moment is right.
Yeah.
And that's the way to amplify your impact and really start growing. I know a lot of people who are still stuck in that early phase because that's all they know. They've been doing it for years. And it's like at some point you have something that works, really start to grow that. And last stage is diplomat, but that's like really late once you have multiple offices and you need to share the vision, etc. So you need to evolve on that journey. And not everybody is good at all those steps of the journey.
Yeah, it's like the evolution of delegation. You're basically making it not just about you, but about the team, and then it's about the vision, it's about the mission, it's about the principles, it's about getting everybody on that bus and you driving it to the destination. Prior to Oculo, Tom, you started a company in Argentina which was building apps for the sports industry, which I found was a really interesting story because you've never really been in sports before and you entered a market which I don't know anything really about sports either, so it's cool that you managed to build something in that world and have it go successful on the App Store. What are you doing now as differently as a second-time founder with Oculo as opposed to a first-time founder with the prior business? Because I find second-time, third-time founders, they've often forgot more than a first-time founder has even learned to begin with. So what are you doing differently this time around? Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, I'll tell you what I'm doing similarly, actually.
Sure.
So I too didn't know much about football. That wasn't my passion. So it was a very opportunistic business. And honestly, we knew we didn't know what we were doing. We were, young and naive, basically.
Yeah.
But what I did do is educate myself on the market really, really quickly. Okay. And the reason this is similar is because my background is not construction. While, yes, it's true in my life story, when I came to this country, I came with 300 pounds in my pocket, and my very first job was indeed on the construction site. I don't actually have engineering background. So really immersing yourself in a space and understanding your users or potential users is definitely something I did back then, which served us really well, as obviously now you can't over-index on educate yourself on your market. In fact, that's actually a strength, arguably, because you look at it with a pair of fresh eyes, and if you're a good listener, you can spot patterns that others might take for granted or not notice. Yeah. Now, look, I've made so many mistakes on that first attempt. So a few things that come to my mind. One is when I was starting my second business, I remember this bit of advice that really stuck with me. It's if you can pick one thing, pick a really, really big market. And construction is 10% of world GDP. Literally our TAM is in trillions.
So huge TAM.
Exactly. And it's also the second least digitized industry in the world. So it's the last digital frontier. There's just so much opportunity. So if you have that much space, you have space to maneuver, iterate, change, adapt. And that's important. One thing I would add that nobody told me back then is also make sure it's a rich market. It's much easier to sell to rich people than to people who have less money, I guess. But ultimately, if I was to go back to what I was doing with the sports app, I would say more tenacity, actually, more iteration. We got really, really lucky. And that, again, is a story of my life. There's so many times I just got lucky. And at some point, we managed to, so it was an app for Euro 2012, the Euro soccer tournament, football tournament. And we were basically perfectly tailored in terms of the name, the branding, the functionality for the tournament itself. We rode that wave to the top.
Okay.
And then, honestly, UEFA contacted us with lawyers and said, listen, you can't be using this brand, this name, etc. And stupidly, we just gave up. As in, we played it nicely.
Sure.
But I'm in hindsight, this would have been the perfect springboard for many other tournaments. Different branding. Look for different growth channels. We've milked the hell out of the fact that App Store at the time was really early on. So the SEO equivalent of that was literally using the name Euro 2012 in the name. That was the primary thing. Obviously, that didn't stay that long.
Sure.
But again, I think knowing everything I know now, I'm there's just so many avenues to explore that you could use. Again. There's different monetization mechanisms, different growth channels, leveraging the user base that we already had. So I think, just really explore all your options very systematically. And when I started my second business, I remember saying to people, So that was during my MBA times, and I said, I'm gonna finish this degree running a business, or I'm gonna die trying.
Okay.
And that was the level of determination, and I don't think I had quite that.
Hey, this podcast is brought to you by WeLoveAlpha.com. If you're looking to grow and hire and scale your software engineering team in the UK, then go to WeLoveAlpha.com to hire the best software developers on the market. Everything across Java to C# to PHP to Python to React and Angular and mobile and more. Go to WeLoveAlpha.com to hire the best software engineers in the UK now.
So Tommy, you've raised a couple of rounds of investment to get Oculo to where it is today. And so many founders, they struggle with that pitch. They struggle to get meetings. They struggle to get the capital. What would you say to them right now? What tips, what advice, what recommendations could you give them on raising investment?
Sure. So, first of all, I would say raising funds is not a goal in itself.
Yeah.
And it's obviously tough, and it's especially now, and it's obviously important. But ultimately, you want to build a business, and you want to build a business which grows. So I would say revenue again and growth really takes care of everything.
Yeah.
You see on TechCrunch and all of that, companies celebrating raising money, and obviously it's great. But to me, I really downplay this. Even when we raised money recently, it was a very short announcement to the team. I said, listen, the money is there, it's great, let's go back to building the business. Let's go back focusing on clients and growing. And this served us really well, this mindset, because we did, it was an evolution, we did chase the raises before.
Sure.
Once we really nailed on that and started really growing fast, commercializing the hell out of our technology, fundraising became much easier, because the mindset when talking to investors was like, look, this train is leaving the station no matter what. This business is already growing, and look how much it's grown.
Yeah.
So the analogy I remember saying is we're a camel. We're not a unicorn. We're a real business that actually exists, that's growing, and that can survive harsh climate, just like right now.
Yes.
But if we get funding, we can grow even faster. That's a much more compelling story.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you may not be able to start a business initially with no capital.
Yeah.
There's obviously SEIS, which is the easiest capital you'll ever get.
Yeah. It's free.
It's close to free, as you said.
Yeah.
And I would say really, really challenge yourself on how far you can push your business with that. And again, revenue just answers all the questions. It answers all the problems. So I would say over-index on that, and the rest should kind of take care of itself. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, look, today I've never raised a penny, and a lot of my best friends have fully bootstrapped businesses, which are absolutely crushing it. But if you are going to raise, having a very, very simple story of, you put this much money in, and then the machine turns it into this much money. And if you can demonstrate traction and explain the milestones you've done so far to get to that point, then it becomes almost a no-brainer for an investor, really, because you're just showing them a scientific way of fingers crossed of that train continuing on that journey, right? And I love what you said around the train is going to leave the station. It creates FOMO. It creates people wanting to jump on that opportunity before it's gone, because you're going to be successful with or without them. You're just inviting them along for the ride. And when you have that leverage, when it's not about you really, really desperately needing them, but you're giving them an opportunity to join you, then it becomes a whole lot easier after that, because investors, they can kind of smell it if you're being desperate, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and one extra thing actually to mention, you said that there's this machine that creates money, etc. Again, especially product-based product founders, they tend to think of you have to build the machine, you have to build the tool, because it's the easiest default action to do.
Yeah.
And I remember, initially I remember really positioning Oculo, my company, as a deep tech startup, and I was like, well, it's really complicated tech. It's deep. We need capital to really scale it. And reality has proven us otherwise. We managed to scale it pretty well while being capital efficient. And I remember talking to an investor way back, at the beginning, who invests in deep tech at later stages, and said, look, how do I pitch it? How do I position it? And he's like, don't talk deep tech. I'm like, yeah, but this is deep tech. How do I talk about it? Like, talk about your cost of a customer acquisition. And he kept just going to those metrics. I was like, he doesn't get it. In the end, I didn't get it because he was right.
Yeah, stick to the basics. And I've heard you say that you're building like a Ford rather than a Rolls Royce.
Exactly.
And I love that, because then it appeals to a wider market, and it's not some 10-year research and development project before you can finally start getting customers. It means you're a lot more agile and quicker to market. Yeah. So you are building ultimately like an AI-focused company. What are your thoughts on the future of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, what we're seeing so far is incumbents are winning. When it comes to like the really big obvious use cases, it's the Adobes of this world, it's the Microsoft of this world. They are reaping those benefits directly. So I don't think that's really the route that's interesting for people to explore. Because I mean, you just have so much more resources in an industry that is resource heavy. But what I think is interesting is you can stand on shoulders of giants. The technology has progressed so much that I see a lot of like niche, and by niche I mean industry specific workflows, which you can where you can leverage all those advances in tech and do things that previously were basically impossible. Like 5 years ago were impossible, would require a huge budget. And I think from that perspective the future is bright. So for aspiring entrepreneurs, I would definitely say yes, look at what AI does, but then specialize it. Like OpenAI is not going to go into, in my case, construction. That's not it's not going to be a competitive play, but there's just a ton of value that can be created by creatively utilizing the advances in tech.
Yeah, no, definitely. Trying to create a ChatGPT clone when they have all the GPUs and when they have all the data, it's a little bit, unrealistic to think you're going to be able to take on, that machine, especially when it's got the billions of Microsoft investing behind it. But in our case, for the past year, we've been building the ChatGPT of recruitment, and we're almost ready to go live with that. So,
exactly.
So we're really niching down and sub-niching down into a very, very specific area, because ChatGPT, they don't have thousands and thousands of CVs like we have. It's a very different data set, which allows people to build that. So I completely agree with you that the future of AI, it's if you want to build an AI company from a founder perspective, it's really sub-niche type AI problems that you're going to be solving, because it's a general purpose technology. It will change the world in many different ways. What way can you add value to that equation? Don't try and do everything, try and do one thing amazingly.
Yeah, and I would just say that the word niche gives those connotations of it being small. Again, it's more about being industry specific, and then those niches can be huge. Definitely enough for loads of really big businesses to be built.
I mean, the niche of construction is worth trillions. So,
exactly. Exactly.
I'll take that. A lot of people do worry though that AI is going to replace their job, and not just self-driving cars, not just Mid-Journey replacing graphic designers, but I'm talking software engineers and lawyers and accountants and many other more white-collar types of positions, maybe even CEOs and founders and podcast hosts one day. But what are your thoughts on AI kind of replacing a large percentage of jobs over the next couple of years? It seems like it could be a very realistic and possible thing.
Yeah, I mean, so the race for AGI is real. So for sure, it's moving in that direction, and somewhat, there will be some jobs that will be eliminated. But I think there's a lot of nuance to this. So in a way, it's kind of like saying, well, there was a job of a typist, and then that was displaced because there is computers, for example. I mean, technically it's true, but there's a whole bunch of other jobs that were created. So it's about knowing how to use the tool, especially in like this kind of time horizon that you mentioned, the next few years. Obviously, prompt engineering is a new, the new skill set to develop, and I would say it's, for the most part, it's augmentation, not replacement. So you can be much more productive and much more effective when you know how to use those tools. But AI can write text, but can't, or generate text, but can't know what is a good enough copy for certain use cases. It still needs to be driven there. AI can generate music. There's this tool I've seen the other day where you can literally, exactly. So you know that one. Obviously, you can even create video. But now the question is, so the mechanics of it can be automated, and the direction of travel is clear. But the creativity behind it, knowing what will actually be unique, original, tailored, interesting, that I think there's quite a bit missing still. I don't see it being replaced, immediately. So, and I would say in general, it's understanding of humans. This whole human-facing part of it. So, like, ironically, jobs like sales, jobs like hospitality, these will be the last things to be replaced. Yes, there's some, entrees into addressing these, but humans will want to interact with humans and sense that understanding. So I think you can't go wrong by over-indexing in soft skills and understanding of other humans.
Yeah, no, I think you're probably absolutely right. I mean, the last jobs to go will be the relationship-driven jobs, because people still like dealing with people for the most part. And I agree that AI will probably become more of a co-pilot in the majority of jobs rather than a complete replacement. At least for the short term. Who knows in the long term, if AGI gets to the point where it's just as good or even better than speaking to a human. I mean, who knows? Then maybe we'll be in a different situation. But I mean, we're basically speculating at that point. But some people do believe that when we get to AGI, it will basically become sentient. It will basically become self-aware. And it's a very, very heated topic. But as somebody that runs an AI-driven company, do you believe that AI will ever become conscious?
I mean, ever is ever, yeah, everything's possible.
Sure, on a long enough time scale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess there's another built-in philosophical question in there, which is like, well, what does it mean, conscious? What is consciousness? And that's not something that's actually, even with experts in the field, there isn't even a single agreed definition of that. So
nobody knows.
Exactly. I don't mean even in the AI context, but like, what is human consciousness? Animals have consciousness, all of that stuff.
What is this? Yeah.
Exactly.
We have no idea.
Maybe I'll put it this way. So I'm not an expert in the AGI field. That's not what we do.
Yeah.
But there's clearly enough people looking into this and considering this a threat. So it's there's plenty of credible people who see this real. I think maybe more interestingly, you don't have to be afraid of the sentient part of it. But there's like a lot of use cases which could how do I say this? There's many ways in which AI can go wrong without necessarily being sentient.
Yes.
I've seen this example recently, for example, how you can use ChatGPT to hack into other systems. And you literally just ask the right questions and it just naively goes through and already is able to go through some of the publicly available tests. So that evolving a bit further and falling in the wrong hands could be a massive problem without necessarily being sentient. Now, on the consciousness part, I think the most important thing to say that many people who are not close to AI don't get is, at the moment, ultimately, it's still a machine that produces statistically plausible output. There's zero intelligence as such built in. There's a lot of like really clever tricks under the hood. But talking to people who are close to it, they're like, I can't believe people fall for this. Like, it's a statistically, plausible output, and people think there's some built-in intelligence. So, my understanding is there's at least one paradigm shift that needs to happen for us to be able to get anywhere close to actual intelligence, if not multiple. So, like, if we continue evolving what's currently available, like, we'll never ever get there. So, we are still waiting for those paradigm shifts to even start approaching that.
This is a quick message to tell you about Alpha University. Alpha University is an advanced training program to help you reach success in 7 simple steps. I am going to personally coach you so that you can achieve your goals, make more money, and transform your life. Just go to joinalphauniversity.com now, or click the link in the description. Definitely, I completely agree with what you said around the potential threats and dangers, because on one hand, AI could be remarkable and it could change the world and make it a better place in an endless variety of ways. But at the same time, if ChatGPT is hacking into systems, and if this is the worst that it's ever going to be, and it's just going to get better and better and better from here, then AI does hallucinate. Like what if it thinks there's going to be a nuclear war happening, and then it retaliates accidentally, and all kinds of crazy situations could happen, and on scale, because it's not about people doing this, it's about machines doing this, and there's enough GPUs out there to create some serious damage. So we are entering the unknown, and it's going to be amazing on one hand, but also there's going to be a hell of a lot of chaos on the other hand as well. So what a crazy time to be alive, and anyway.
May you live in interesting times, right?
Yeah, I know. What a time. On the Smarter Building podcast, you said that the more bats that you swing, the luckier that you get. And I love that quote, that the more bats you swing, the luckier you get. A lot of people, they just don't play the numbers game. They try building a business, and after 3 months, they haven't made a sale and they shut it down. They tried doing a podcast, and after 5 episodes, nobody's watching, and they stop doing it. Why is that consistency? Why is the numbers game so important?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's cliche, but it's really true. There's two aspects of it. There's one that's really obvious, which is any skill just takes time to develop. So you just need to keep practicing, as you said, like if you're doing a podcast or whatever, starting a business. But there's something else that I found really incredible, which is there is indeed a lot of luck and serendipity like that I found that helped me a lot. A lot of it, I would say like half the people that were pivotal to my business or like really important in some way that I'm working with or used to work with appeared in my life completely serendipitously through sheer luck. That I was just, my mind was blown that's what happened. It does involve being at the right place at the right time, but for that to happen, you need to be there. Like you need that being in the right place just means that you stayed in the game long enough.
Yes.
So if you stay in the game long enough and optimize for serendipity, it's incredible what kind of people you can you can encounter, what kind of opportunities you'll encounter. And it's kind of like compounding interest. So if you do this for 3 months, maybe it will happen once. But if you do this for 5 years, you will have loads of these, and you would never be able to predict how lucky you get. And then you look back and it's like, how did all of that happen? All of those lucky encounters. And it's I mean, you can optimize for it and just that's what the numbers can give you.
It's got to stay in the game long enough to get lucky, basically. And the longer you do it, the luckier you get. We met, was it at a party?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a good example.
At like 1 a.m. at a party.
Exactly.
Just randomly, and then we ended up doing a bunch of business together. So it just shows you got to stay in the game. You got to just be in those situations, be in the right place at the right time. You'll meet the right people. And I mean, I've met hundreds of other people at parties, which it led to nothing. So it's a numbers game. You just got to put in the work, and then you get the rewards out of it.
Yeah, you just got to show up and just not give up. And again, the optimizing for serendipity is really important. A lot of people are just like, they're doing the numbers but sticking to the one thing they do. I think that's just an underappreciated skill set, effectively, or a mindset of an entrepreneur.
What do you mean by serendipity?
I mean, optimizing for encounters that you couldn't possibly plan for. So me meeting you on this party, I would never have thought that this would have happened. Me sitting next to a guy writing a book on startup growth while being on a plane and struggling with growth. Like I could never have predicted that this is what's going to happen. And on and on and on. There's, or me meeting a friend who later on meets a friend who ends up being my employee, and I'm really an investor. So lots of those kind of things.
I've had so many of those situations, especially recently, to the point where it almost feels divine or planned or intervened. And I don't know if it is. Maybe there is an element of it. Maybe it's just luck and numbers. But it gets to the point where it becomes spooky, and it's like I've met somebody and then we've ended up in investing in them, or we've by chance a friend of a friend, I already knew that person, and then something crazy has happened. It's just at a point it becomes like we're living in a simulation, and it feels like that sometimes. But yeah, you just got to 90% of the work is just showing up. It's just being there and being available, getting the basics right.
And being open to it. So there's also people who are like, well, I have this plan, so I'm sticking with that plan. And it's like, well, open yourself up to all the other opportunities and maybe not necessarily go with the flow, but reap those benefits when they appear and be willing to change and adjust.
So you said something which I absolutely loved earlier in this conversation, but you came to the UK with literally £300 in your pocket, okay? And now you're the CEO of your own company. That's like an incredible journey. Okay, so what advice would you give to others who are starting over and going to a new country? Because it's hard. I did it. When I was 19 years old, I moved to New Zealand. I didn't know a single person there, apart from my girlfriend at the time and now my wife. I had, like you, I had literally no money. I had about enough for like 1 month of rent. I had a single backpack on me. I sold everything, which wasn't much. I was a teenager in the UK. And then luckily, I was able to find a job and turn that into a great career and get married and have a kid and everything. But moving to a brand new country, we've both been through it. It's fucking scary. It's really, really hard to do. And especially when you have like no money to do it. So what advice would you give to people that are going through that situation right now?
I mean, first of all, I would say it's incredible if you're in this situation, because it forces you to basically sink or swim. That's literally what it is. And that's very character building. Which is, you already are getting some of the skills that are required to be a successful entrepreneur. You're able to figure out the sink or swim. It's not as scary. I think you already are in an advantaged position compared to others if you went through this experience. yeah, that makes you stronger right from the get-go. Pure sink or swim, figure whatever is needed to, to get going. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I mean, obviously the biggest weakness in the situation is network. So I would say optimize for building a network of people, and don't be afraid to ask for help. People love helping, basically. Everybody wants to help others. So if you do that, so if you put yourself through hardship, also by definition, you're kind of a more open-minded person. You yourself already just said, luckily something happened. There is no luck there. There's a bit of tenacity as well. And from that point on, it's really not giving up in your dreams and just having the tenacity, iterating, learning from your mistakes, and making sure you're not doing it in a vacuum. Otherwise, sky's the limit, really.
Yeah, you're definitely limited if you're trying to do it in isolation. We're both part of some like communities and groups of entrepreneurs together, and I've found I've learned more and gotten more from those networks than I could possibly ever get on my own. If I'm trying to solve a problem and I don't even know where A is, never mind, M, N or P. If I just speak to 5 people who have already gone through that situation, I can turn this much time into this much time, because they can give me the blueprint, they can give me the game plan, they can show me where I need to go, what I need to say, who I need to speak to. So having that network, having that friendship group, having that peer community, it's just such an advantage, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So you've had like a super interesting life, Tom, and a crazy backstory of adventure, which most people would be very, very jealous of. You've done free diving in the Great Barrier Reef. You've flown on zip wires in Laos. You've spent a month in a Buddhist monastery in Thailand. What do you think makes a life well lived?
I mean, first of all, well done on research. So,
yes.
Well done on spotting those things. You did miss me being a full-time tango dancer in Argentina back when. So yeah, I've done a few crazy things. The way I think about it is, you can almost think of life as a computer game, which has like all sorts of side quests and different things to explore. And I mean, cliche as it is, it's like, what do you want to say at the end of your life? And I'm like, by the time I roll to the grave, I want to be able to say I've lived every facet or as many facets of human experience as possible. So you can think about it from a perspective of different buckets. There's a travel bucket where you refer to. There's the creativity or art bucket. Obviously, there's the professional one, which is what I'm optimizing for right now. And you can't optimize for all of them at the same time. Sometimes you need to let go of others. But ultimately, you don't want to be like, focus on one thing only. There's the family, spirituality bucket. And the way I'm thinking about it is almost like phases, where you want to optimize for one thing at the expense of others, such that at the end of life, you can say, I understand what human experience was like and what are the possible options. It's just a much more richer way to live life. Yeah,
it's so multifaceted. I know so many people who are incredibly successful at business, but their health is failing. All their relationships hate them, and they haven't really explored and seen the world and experienced life. And then I know people that have kind of gone on those journeys and they've traveled the world and they've seen amazing things, but they are stuck in a dead-end job and they're pretty miserable 90% of the time. So, life, it's not just about this. It's about opening yourself up to everything that's beautiful and amazing out there, from your mission of your journey of your life and your career to exploring, to traveling, to meeting amazing people, to building those relationships, to having great health and wealth and happiness and spirituality. And life just focused on one of those realms, it's not really living life to the full. You kind of need to try and conquer everything and really explore the beauty of all areas, really.
Yeah, and obviously it's not only the good things, the bad things also shape you, as we mentioned earlier on. Yeah. Doing those things earlier in one's life, I would say, is helpful, because it just gives you more context and more perspective to step out of that tunnel vision early on. And
it becomes a lot harder, like the older you get. I got a 1.5-year-old, right? And I can't really go to a Buddhist monastery for a month right now. That would be a bit tricky.
There's a right moment in time where you can pull those things off, and you have to leap onto them when those opportunities present themselves.
Definitely. So just do it. Like right now, if you can, just go for it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, this has been an amazing conversation, mate, on starting a company, on building it through sales, through investment, through building a great product. We've talked about AI. We've talked about the future of technology, and we've talked about what makes a life well lived. If people have enjoyed this conversation and they want to check out your platform, you've just got an amazing new website. What's the link? Where should they go to?
The website is oculo.ai, oculo.ai.
And if people want to find out more about, I guess, would LinkedIn be the best place to go?
LinkedIn is a good place, yeah.
Okay, amazing. Tom, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for watching this podcast. Make sure that you like, subscribe, follow, comment, etc., etc. And I'll see you in the next episode.